I was so afraid we had lost you.
It takes more than that to kill a human.
Somewhere out in the stars, there is a soldier nobody remembers. He gave up everything for a child who was not even human. He took arrows meant to kill her. He bled for her. He almost died for her. Then he vanished. For 30 years, no one spoke his name. But the truth behind this story will shock you. Because that little alien girl he saved did not just survive. She grew up. She fought. She rose higher than anyone thought possible. And today, she rules an empire that stretches across the stars. In this video, you will discover 3 things that most people never learn. First, why this soldier chose to save a stranger, an alien, when his own people told him to leave her behind. Second, the secret hidden inside that child's blood, a secret that would one day shake an entire galaxy. And third, what happened when the most powerful Empress in the universe finally found the man who saved her life. This is not just a rescue story. This is a story about loyalty that outlives memory, and love that outlives empires. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Roan Carter was not a hero. He was just a soldier. He worked on the edge of human space, far from Earth, guarding a small mining colony called Verath Station. It was a quiet place. Nothing important ever happened there. Most days, Roan just walked the fences, checked the radar, and went to sleep. But one night, everything changed. An alarm went off. Red lights filled the base. Roan grabbed his rifle and ran outside. In the sky, a small ship was falling. It was burning. It crashed near the edge of the colony, deep in the rocky hills. Roan was ordered to stay back. His commander said it was not human. It could be dangerous. But Roan did not listen. Something inside him told him to go. He ran through the dark, over sharp rocks, until he found the wreck. Smoke filled the air. Metal was twisted everywhere. And there, inside the broken ship, was a small figure. It was a child. But not a human child. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing in the moonlight. Her eyes were wide and gold, filled with fear. She was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old in human years. She was shaking. She was hurt. Roan had never seen an alien before. Not up close. Not like this. For a second, he froze. Then the girl looked at him, and something in her eyes reminded him of every scared child he had ever seen. He reached out his hand. She did not take it right away. She was afraid. But when the ship began to spark and smoke thickened, she finally grabbed his hand and let him pull her out. That was the moment everything started. Roan carried her back to the base. His commander was angry. He said aliens were not to be trusted. He said she could be a spy, or worse, a trap. But Roan refused to hand her over to be locked away. He said she was just a child. For days, Roan kept her close. He gave her food. He gave her a blanket. He even gave her a name, since she could not tell him her own in words he understood. He called her Zaya, after a star he once saw shining brighter than the rest. Slowly, Zaya began to trust him. She followed him everywhere. She watched how he worked, how he laughed, how he protected others. She did not understand human language yet, but she understood kindness. And kindness was something she had not felt in a long time. Nobody at the colony knew where she came from. Nobody knew her real name or her real people. All they knew was that a strange ship had fallen from the sky, carrying a child who was somehow both fragile and important. What Roan did not know, what nobody at that small mining colony could have guessed, was that Zaya was not just any alien child. She was running from something that had already killed almost everyone she knew. And it was still coming for her. 3 weeks after the crash, the danger finally arrived. It came at night, without warning. Dark ships appeared in the sky above Verath Station, silent and fast. They were hunters, and they were looking for Zaya. Roan woke up to alarms screaming through the base. Soldiers ran in every direction. Explosions lit up the sky. The attackers were not human. They were tall, armored figures with glowing red eyes, moving with terrifying speed and precision. Roan grabbed Zaya and pulled her close. She was shaking, tears running down her pale blue face. She understood exactly what was happening. She had seen this before. This was why her ship had crashed in the first place. She had been running. The commander ordered everyone to retreat. But the hunters were closing in fast, and one group broke away from the main attack, heading straight for the building where Roan was hiding with Zaya. They wanted her. Only her. Roan made a choice in that moment that would define the rest of his life. He picked up Zaya, wrapped her in his jacket, and ran. The hunters chased them through the colony, firing poison arrows from strange, silent weapons. These were not ordinary weapons. The poison worked fast, paralyzing anything it touched, then slowly killing it from the inside. Roan felt one arrow graze his shoulder. Then another hit his leg. He kept running. Zaya screamed for him to leave her, to save himself. But Roan would not listen. He remembered how scared she looked the night he found her. He remembered how she had trusted him, even though she had every reason not to. He was not going to let her die. They reached a narrow canyon at the edge of the colony. It was a dead end. The hunters surrounded them from above, arrows raining down like a storm. Roan turned his back to Zaya and stood in front of her. Arrow after arrow struck him. In his arms, in his back, in his chest. Each one burned like fire, spreading poison through his body. He could barely stand. But he refused to fall, because if he fell, Zaya would be next. Zaya screamed his name, the only human word she had learned to say clearly. She begged him to stop, to run, to save himself. But Roan stayed standing, shielding her with his own body until the very last arrow struck him. Then, finally, reinforcements arrived. Human soldiers pushed the hunters back, forcing them to retreat into the night sky. The battle was over. But Roan was dying. He collapsed to the ground, poison spreading through his veins. Zaya knelt beside him, crying, pressing her small blue hands against his wounds, as if she could somehow stop the bleeding through sheer will alone. The last thing Roan remembered was her voice, shaking, whispering words he did not understand, before everything went dark. Roan did not die that night, but he came close. The colony's doctors worked for hours trying to save him. The poison from the arrows was unlike anything they had ever seen. It should have killed him within minutes. Somehow, he survived, though barely. He fell into a deep coma, his body fighting a war no medicine could fully explain. Zaya never left his side. She sat by his bed every single day, holding his hand, whispering to him in her own language, as if her voice alone could pull him back from the edge of death. Then, one morning, without warning, more ships arrived above the colony. This time, they were not hunters. These ships were massive, golden, and covered in strange glowing symbols. Soldiers wearing elegant silver armor stepped out, moving with calm, disciplined precision. At their center walked a tall figure wearing robes of deep purple and gold, clearly someone of great importance. They had come for Zaya. The human commander, fearing another attack, prepared his soldiers for battle. But the leader of the newcomers raised a hand and spoke in a calm, steady voice through a translator device. He explained that they were not enemies. They were searching for a lost princess, the last surviving heir of a fallen royal bloodline, a child who had escaped a violent uprising that destroyed her family and her home. The hunters who attacked the colony were assassins, sent by rebels who wanted to erase her bloodline forever. Zaya was that princess. The humans were stunned. The small, quiet child who had been living among them, eating their food, learning their language, was actually the heir to an entire alien empire. Zaya did not want to leave. She clung to Roan's unconscious body, refusing to let go, insisting that she would not abandon the man who saved her life. But the royal soldiers explained gently that Roan needed advanced medical care that no human colony could provide, care that only their empire's technology could offer. Reluctantly, and only after they promised Roan would be treated and protected, Zaya agreed to leave with them. Before she left, she knelt beside Roan's bed one final time. She placed her small hand on his chest and made a quiet promise, speaking slowly in broken human words she had learned just for this moment. She said, "I will come back. I promise." Then she was gone, carried away into the stars, leaving behind a colony that would soon forget the strange little girl who once lived among them, and a soldier who would spend years recovering, his memories of those final moments fading like a dream. Nobody at Verath Station ever saw her again. For 30 years, life continued. Roan slowly healed, though the poison left permanent scars, both on his body and in his memory. He eventually left military service, settling into a quiet life on a distant outpost, rarely speaking about what happened that night, mostly because barely anyone believed him. Meanwhile, far away, across the stars, Zaya's story was only just beginning. Zaya's return to her people was not the fairy tale anyone imagined. Her empire, once powerful and proud, had been shattered by betrayal. Rebel forces had murdered her parents and most of her royal family, seizing control of key territories while she was presumed dead. Her survival and her return threw the entire empire into chaos. Many did not believe she was truly the lost princess. Others saw her as a threat to their newly gained power. She was young, alone, and surrounded by people who smiled at her while secretly plotting against her. But Zaya was not the same frightened child who had once hidden inside a crashed ship. She had survived poison arrows, war, and loss. She had watched a stranger nearly die to protect her. That memory never left her. It shaped her into someone who refused to be weak ever again. She trained for years in secret, learning politics, strategy, and combat. She studied the mistakes that led to her family's downfall. She built quiet alliances with nobles who still believed in justice. Slowly, carefully, she gathered support, moving like a shadow through her own empire. It took over a decade before she was ready to challenge the rebels who had stolen her throne. The war that followed was brutal. Zaya fought not just with armies, but with intelligence, patience, and unmatched determination. She exposed corruption. She freed enslaved territories. She earned loyalty not through fear, but through fairness, something her empire had not seen in generations. One by one, the rebel leaders fell. Some surrendered. Others were defeated in open battle. Zaya, now a grown woman, finally reclaimed her family's throne, becoming the rightful empress of a shattered empire desperate for healing. But even as she rebuilt her civilization, restoring peace across countless worlds, she never forgot the man who once stood between her and death, taking arrow after arrow without ever stepping aside. She searched for records of Verath Station, the small human colony where she had once hidden. She sent quiet inquiries through allied human territories, asking about a soldier named Roan Carter. For years, there was no answer. Records were incomplete. Colonies had been abandoned or absorbed into larger settlements. It seemed as though the man who saved her life had disappeared from history entirely. Then, finally, a single report reached her palace. A retired soldier, living quietly on a remote human outpost, matched the description. Old, scarred, alone, barely known by anyone around him. Zaya read the report 3 times before she finally allowed herself to believe it. After 30 years, she had found him. Roan was sitting outside his small home when the ships arrived. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Golden ships, similar to the ones from decades ago, descended slowly from the sky, drawing a small crowd of curious neighbors. Soldiers in silver armor stepped out, forming a respectful path. Then, walking calmly through that path, was a woman Roan did not recognize at first. She was tall, elegant, dressed in deep crimson and gold robes, wearing a crown that shimmered like starlight. Her pale blue skin and golden eyes, however, stirred something deep in his memory, something he had buried for 30 years. She stopped in front of him, tears filling her eyes. "Roan," she said softly, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "Do you remember me?" For a long moment, Roan simply stared, his mind struggling to connect the frightened child from his memory with the powerful woman standing before him. Then it hit him. "Zaya," he whispered. She smiled, tears finally falling. "I told you I would come back." Roan struggled to stand, overwhelmed, but Zaya knelt down first, taking his weathered hands into her own, just as she had done 30 years earlier when he lay dying from poison meant for her. She explained everything: her survival, her long struggle to reclaim her throne, her endless search to find him again. She told him how his sacrifice had never left her mind, how it had shaped every decision she made as a leader, teaching her that true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Roan listened quietly, overwhelmed by emotions he had buried for decades. Zaya then made an offer that stunned everyone watching. She asked Roan to come live within her empire, not as a soldier, not as a servant, but as an honored guest, a symbol of the sacrifice and kindness that had once saved an empire's future. Roan hesitated at first. He was old now, tired, unsure if he belonged among the stars anymore. But Zaya reminded him gently of something he once told her, back when she was just a scared child hiding in a crashed ship. He had told her that no one should ever face their fears alone. With a quiet smile, Roan finally agreed. As he boarded the golden ship, leaving his quiet life behind. He realized something remarkable. 30 years earlier, he had taken 1,000 arrows to save a dying child with no name, no home, and no future. Now, that same child stood before him as an empress, ready to give him home among the stars, repaying debt that words could never fully describe. Here is the twist most people never expect. Zaya's rise to power was not just about revenge or justice. It was built entirely on a single memory, a soldier who chose kindness over fear, sacrifice over safety. Reports suggest that within her empire, Zaya later established a new law, one that protected refugees and outsiders, inspired directly by the way Rome once protected her, a stranger, without hesitation. The soldier nobody remembered became the reason an entire empire changed forever. If this opened your eyes to how one small act of kindness can shape history itself, wait until you see what happens in the next HFY story, where another forgotten hero changes the fate of an entire galaxy. Let's recap what we just discovered. A soldier sacrificed everything for a stranger, without knowing her true importance. That stranger grew into the most powerful empress in the galaxy. And decades later, she returned, not with an army, but with gratitude. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next incredible HFYSCIFI story. Drop a like if Roan's sacrifice gave you chills, and leave a comment sharing which moment hit you the hardest. For more emotional, powerful, and unforgettable HFY stories, check out our next video, where humanity proves once again why kindness is the greatest strength in the universe. Tell us in the comments, if you were Roan, would you have made the same choice?